Sandman Nation, welcome to the St. Louis Syndicate. I'm Nate, he's Brandon, and here this week with NFL Steam, helping you as you navigate your picks for the week. Once again, I don't know if you need to be following myself or Brandon, because in our total pick'em pools where we pick every game, we pretty much suck ass. But we're doing okay with the Sandman Legend picks, and we're doing okay in our overall picks on these presentations. So maybe you
Yeah.
should be following us. I mean, take a look, Brandon. Look at last week on our Sandman picks. We were brilliant.
Yeah. For the most part.
Hey, 66%. You can't get better odds than
Sure.
that in Vegas. I mean, come on, man.
No, we got a good 3 games, as it turns out,
Yeah,
to take a run at. Like that
absolutely.
Buffalo game, you know, was good, and then Seattle let it completely get away from them with a
Uh,
couple of mess ups.
yeah,
And then, Baltimore Cleveland was awesome, and so was Chicago and Washington, even though um I had put a reasonable high confidence pick on Chicago, and then stood in my backyard as the ball sailed through the night air. So that was that was a rough way to end the 3 o'clock games. I'll tell you that.
you got to admit though, the Washington Commanders. One of the things we talked about even just a few minutes ago was they've kind of followed this model of what Houston did last year. I don't think
Yep.
either of us thought that Jaden Daniels was going to be all this in a bag of chips. We thought he was going to be maybe a serviceable quarterback who was going to grow and have growing pains, and we may have been scared of the Bryce Young aspect. He's kind of a lean, littler guy,
Yeah.
a lot like Bryce Young, but hell, he's playing way more like C.J. Stroud.
No, I think it's the height thing over the weight thing. When it came down to it, that I don't think Bryce can see where he's throwing the football. Like when it comes down to it,
Yeah,
and Jaden can, and it turns out that he is good enough at not letting people hit him dead on.
yeah, it's a big deal.
Like that's really you in my mind going into the season went. He's definitely got an arm on him. It's just when you go from LSU to the pros, are you really good at reading defenses? Are
Right.
you really good at not getting hit? Or can you just get your first read and really sling the ball in there? And I have lost a lot of picks so far going against Washington, and I don't really know how to get back on the train now. So it's going to be a weird dance for the rest of the season because I feel like the first time that I take them against like a really good team, that's the week they're going to get figured out. So we'll see how that goes down, but that's what goes on in my head when I start trying to pick these teams that I think, they really are kind of doing this with smoke and mirrors a little bit.
So, for you listeners out there who are paying attention to what we're talking about, Brandon is scared to death of Washington and the rookie quarterback because he knows it's going to bite him in the ass at some point. Me, on the other
Yeah,
hand, I'm not scared because I spent a lot of time with Dan Quinn as a Cowboys fan, and that guy can coach some football, and he's got a defense
yeah,
that's humming. And okay, I had similar concerns to you with Jaden Daniels. I'm surprised at what he's been able to accomplish, and I'm really happy for the kid. It feels very much like Houston last year, right?
yeah,
These Ohio State quarterbacks make me nervous coming out, and C.J. Stroud just proved me wrong, but that was partly because he had the right pieces around him and a good coach in D'Amico Ryans. So similar, I don't know, and I would throw Denver into that mix. Bo Nix is not as dynamic a player as C.J. Stroud or Jalen Daniels, but he's got a good defense. He's got some receivers, running back, and he's got a good coach. He's
yeah,
just maturing a little bit slower. So I think as time goes, it's going to be really hard to discount these guys and our old biases. You talk about in the business world, right? You got your biases. Um,
right.
I'm sure that in his consulting in the consultant world, When they want to come in and talk about all of our biases and our cultural biases and everything, we're used to Denver and Washington sucking. So
Right.
we want to just play against them. So
Sure.
we've got to figure out how
Well,
to solve that.
when like the Vegas is built off of people's knee jerk reactions.
Right.
And so to see them come out and go, their defense is still grading poorly, and they have a rookie quarterback. You go, okay, well, there's a way to figure this out. And then they've continued to do good enough on defense to contain the teams they're playing. And then, having this positive variance on stopping the other team's third downs and them making third and fourth downs that you go, okay, is this a plan, or are we just getting all of the positive variance on the front side of the season? And obviously it remains to be seen, but something like this week where I just watched the Giants get worked by Pittsburgh, I feel much more ready to take a team like the Commanders. So we'll see how that actually shakes out when we get to Sunday morning. But if
Right.
this line holds and stays above 3 the whole way through, which I'm assuming most people are just waiting for like good injury reports coming out of Washington's practices this week, and then it'll push up a little bit, and it'll probably make sense to lay that
Right.
3.5.
Boy, that half is what gets you. But
Oh man, makes
you
me
know,
dislike.
it's tough. But at the end of the day, I think two key points that you brought up there. One is knee jerk reaction. So, what kind of knee jerk reaction are we going to see this week to Baltimore and Denver as they come in and play each other, right? We were just talking about Denver. They
Uh-huh.
just beat the tar out of Carolina. And the other point, when I said 2 points, the other point is the opponent's schedule that these guys are playing is critical. And you were kind of
Sure.
alluding to that. So
Yes.
we can kind of cover that in a little bit. But Denver, Baltimore, right off the bat, top of our list. 9.5 points Baltimore's got to cover. Knee jerk reaction says, no way, they just lost to Cleveland. Look at what Denver just did. But we always know that Cleveland, the AFC North as a whole, plays each other close. It's usually a 3 point
Yeah.
game and it could sway the other way. It's the way it is. If you guys bet with your hearts in the AFC North, you're nuts because it always sways that way. It's terrible. That
Sure. Yeah.
division is the worst of all of them. Now
They go to war.
they go to war. They don't like each other. Um, but then Denver coming to town, and you're going, hey, they look great. But who did they just beat? Carolina. So
Yeah.
my gut knee jerk reaction is I'm like, Denver plus 9.5? I love it. But probably if when I do my analysis and look at my numbers this week, I'm probably going to say Baltimore should be favored by 13.5 or more.
Yeah. I'm assuming that that's, the guys that really do the tight um, numbers around, better than and less than zero sort of staggering. Um, I think we're going to get a pretty wide number from a lot of people because they just don't want to let go of their priors. And this is either going to be a priors or not sort of game, because Denver hasn't really beaten a top team yet. And, when you look at Baltimore, like they they really haven't either. But when they've went out there and played really well, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a way to get inside of the coaching staff's head and go, why did you guys run the ball down Buffalo's throat and just beat them into oblivion and then not do that in a bunch of other games? So
Two lesser teams.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I definitely lean the direction of, you know, it's at 9.5. This should push through the 10. Um, and then, you get yourself a nice amount of value there. And you got a team that, look, Baltimore, this is like deep playoff run, get to the Super Bowl or bust sort of team. And if you're going to go in there and have Denver come into your stadium and beat you, or you squeak out some 3-point win or something like that, it's hard to get Lamar another MVP. It's hard to, get a top seed. It's hard to, make everybody come to your house and play in the playoffs. This is the kind of game that, you gotta get those priors working and use the power of, this better franchise to go try to get a win.
You're exactly right. I think it's interesting. Um, you make a good point, though, right? That you need to be able to handle these teams. The teams you should beat, you have to be able to handle them. But in the NFL, a 3-point win is a 3-point win,
It
unless
is.
you're Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, who we have next on the board. Dan Campbell and the Green Bay Packers. Dan Campbell, as you so eloquently noted earlier in our conversation, is playing like we're playing college football. He's on
Yeah.
NCAA 25 on his PlayStation, just running up scores, and his team loves it.
Yeah, he's trying to make sure he stays in the top four rankings.
Yes, he doesn't want to fall out of rankings. So, totally different thought. Harbaugh walks away with a 2-point win and is telling everybody that was the greatest win he ever had. And Campbell's trying to find ways to get his tackle the ball in the end zone. Um,
Yeah.
Huge difference.
And yet, I'm still sitting here going, I think I'll take the 3.5.
Yeah,
And this is, look, it's kind of in that same vein of what we talked about with, you know, Cleveland and Baltimore, where you go, these two teams are playing these games hard. It means something to beat your division mate here in these sorts of games. And we know that both of us have bigger hands than Jared Goff, and he's got to go play outdoors this Sunday. So, regardless of, I never thought I'd say this out loud, if Malik Willis is in there playing quarterback, I guess, I guess I'm going to take my 3.5 points and go, we're going to have weird North football that goes on, and Green Bay will figure out how to cover. And
nah.
that's what I'm starting my week with.
This line is probably 1.5 if Love is playing, or if Love is healthy. And at the end of the
Yeah,
day, I think that they moved it probably to where it should have been with Malik Willis in there. It probably should be more like 3.5 with Love in there and 5.5 with Malik Willis, 6.5. Just my opinion, because I mean he is a really good running quarterback. He's made a few passes, but the Detroit defense is going to just eat him alive.
probably. I mean, look, they lose a guy up front. I don't know. This seems like one of those rat lines where you go, Detroit is beating people into oblivion at will, and Green Bay's probably going to have to play with a quarterback that we literally were just like making jokes when he started games last year.
Yeah,
And I just go, I look, if we're gonna sit here in this center spot, when theoretically Love probably will at least start the game,
yeah.
and this line will get bought through the three, and I'll have a little bit of closing line value there. And I don't know. My favorite Jared Goff play is when he's throwing the pass, but the ball's not in his hand anymore. That's my favorite Jared Goff play. So we'll see how many times he does that out there in Green Bay
It
this
actually
week.
can happen. So we'll have to see what the weather's going to be. Watch the weather there. And this last game, there's not a lot of great games on the schedule this week. There's some good ones. There's some serviceable ones, entertaining. We talked a little bit about Chicago, Arizona, being a fun one to maybe just keep an eye on, right? But number one versus number two in the draft picks. But the Chargers and Cleveland, right? The Cleveland, storm back with behind the leadership guile of Jameis Winston, um, and thump down on Baltimore, probably because Baltimore's known for good seafood, and didn't Jameis steal a bunch of like crab legs or something?
Yes.
So, so he liked the seafood. So he was taking it out on Baltimore. But now we've got a very good coach in Harbaugh taking a what I consider to be a pretty average team in the Chargers, and they just kind of keep beating people. And it's that Harbaugh approach, right? We just talked about it. They stand up at the podium after the game and win by one, and they go, "We won. Why are you guys asking me questions?" And they look
Right.
almost obstinate about the fact, but these guys are NFL guys and they know how it works. So, what do you think about the Chargers and them actually moving into Cleveland?
I'm interested in this game for literally just gambling purposes. At this point, these two teams are hard to pin down so far this year.
Yep.
And it seemed like for both the teams this last Sunday, they put together a plan at least. Hey, we're going to get Jameis out there. We're going to let him stretch the field. The Chargers, we're going to let Herbert actually throw the ball a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah.
use his wide receivers. Um, and that worked out for both of them. So now getting to see the two of them go head to head outdoors, it looks like, a little bit of a chance of rain, a little bit of wind, and let these guys go out there and bang heads and get an idea of what we should expect for them in the future. In my mind, Cleveland just had this, big game that went their way. It makes me lean the Chargers direction and go, I get inside of the three. The Chargers like to run. So if it's a little windy, a little rainy, should be fine. So I'm going to lean the Chargers direction.
And I like Cleveland only because Harbaugh was just kind of mediocre against Ohio State. So since Cleveland's in Ohio, we're going to go there. No, I actually was interested to see, how Chubb keeps working his way back. If they can push him around a little bit, I want to see if these guys can coach their way out of the mess. It's really weird that Kevin Stefanski's probably the better coach of the two Ohio teams. He just doesn't have the caliber players. So
Yeah, no, he kind of got $240 million hung around his neck, depending on how much of a
didn't get to
voice he
spend it
had in that
out.
room.
Didn't get to
Yeah, I
spend it
mean,
out.
now, if it comes out when somebody gets some clean reporting on this that he was going like, yeah, let's go spend the money, then, that's kind of on him too. But, they tend to not let the coach have a whole lot of say in spending nine figures. So I'm going to guess that he got handed a quarterback and went, here, do something with this. And yeah, when you stack him up against Cincinnati, I I don't even know where to begin with them.
Yeah,
Like you watch them play and you go, there's still a lot of talent
yeah.
here, and they just cannot figure it out.
Mm-mm. They
And the only thing you can really do at that point is,
coaching.
yeah, point at the coaches and go, you have all these guys, do the things that work over and over and over again until the team figures out how to stop it. Let's not get super flowery with all of this and try to do the Dan Campbell thing when your team isn't performing that way yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this works out. Two, above average coaches get in there, banging heads outdoors, and see if Cleveland can have another overperformance.
Yeah. That'd be cool. Well, hey, I'm Nate. He's Brandon. That's the steam for the week. Good luck, guys, with your picks.
Cheers.